Could it break? Me, your man, Louie T. Well, for my 2026 NFL draft rankings, we're talking wide receiver position. I'm going to give you my top 15 wide receivers in the 2026 NFL draft. I've already given you 11 through 15. Today, we're going to talk about 6 through 10. This is a draft class that I think has a ton of talent at the receiver position. This particular group of five that we're going to talk about today, I feel like have specific, distinct skill sets that they can carve out a niche for themselves in the league as guys that can find work doing the things that they did extremely well at the collegiate level, that they can duplicate that at the NFL level, hence them ranking as high as they do for me in this upcoming draft. Let's start with the guy that caught my attention at the combine. So much has been made of his teammate Makai Lemon, but this was the guy that stole the show at the NFL Scouting Combine, if you ask me, at the receiver position. I'm talking about wide receiver, USC wide receiver, Jacobe Lane. This is a 6'4", 200-pound wide receiver, checking in at number 10 for me. Love his frame, obviously has the ability to go up and get the football. Was really impressed with his run after catch. That's the thing. Like at the combine, there was a fluidity to him. There was a ball tracking ability. The hands were pristine. You saw all of that on tape. Now, again, at the combine, that's against air. You get into the actual real life application of those things. Now there's the threat of violence and imminent physical harm. How do you respond to that? And I thought that he did a great job of going and getting the football in those 50-50 situations, playing through contact vertically. Now, sometimes as he's playing through contact underneath, he's not as successful. Talked about this earlier with a guy that has a bigger frame in Chris Bell, who I thought didn't do as great of a job in terms of stopping a cornerback or a defender from playing through your body. As a big receiver, your job is to be able to use your frame to box out smaller defenders. Don't always feel like Jacoby Lane does that. However, he is extraordinary with the football in his hand. There's a contact balance that you rarely see for a bigger wide receiver. There is a finesse with him where he can make guys miss. Um, there's the vertical element where he can actually get vertical. Now, he is a build-up speed guy, ran a 4.47 at the combine. So at 6'4", plenty fast, right? But he is a build-up speed guy, but he can get vertical and win with his speed if given the opportunity to do so. He can win underneath with quickness, which again you rarely see for a big 6'4" receiver. We saw a lot of that slant, things of that nature, with him being able to win quickly, get the football in his hands, and then make something happen after the catch. Really like his ability go up and get the football using his frame, top shelf the football. That is a huge thing for me in this league. You can get guys that can go up and get the football. You've seen guys really separate themselves in this league. If they do nothing else, they go up and they get the football. A great example of that is Drake London in Atlanta. Drake London isn't a tremendous route runner. He's not a tremendous separator. He's not a vertical threat. What Drake London does very well goes and gets the football with strong hands at its highest point, away from his frame, whether it's up high or outside of his frame. He goes and plucks it with strong hands. Kobe Lane is another guy that can do that. Now, if you want to talk about the biggest knock on Lane, he lacks wide receiver polish. What do I mean by that? So, for instance, I don't think he does a great job at using his hands to get defenders off of him. I don't think he does a great job with his release off the line of scrimmage. You can disturb him and disrupt him at the line of scrimmage, and that's where the hand usage comes in, right? He, to me, isn't a great route runner right now. It lacks polish, um, and he doesn't have a great feel for zone coverage. You ask yourself, why the hell is he at 10 if there's all of these deficiencies? It's because I feel like the amount of talent that he has at his size, if he gets the right coach that can help him develop route running, using his hands, winning off the line of scrimmage, having a better feel for zone, where to sit down. Like, those are things that I feel like you can teach a guy. He has things that you can't teach. Contact balance, size at 6'4", the ability to go high point the football, the ability at 6'4" with longer limbs to get vertical and use his frame to go get the football. These are things you cannot teach. Run after catch at 6'4", 200 pounds. And not a lot of guys have that ability. That's why he's this high on the list. I have been impressed with him since the combine. Go back and watch the tape and think Jaden Higgins. If you like Jaden Higgins in last year's draft out of Iowa State, and I thought he had a really solid rookie campaign due to injuries in Houston. Jaden Higgins had to play a much bigger role than anybody anticipated, and I thought he stepped up in that role last year. If you liked Jaden Higgins coming out of the draft last year, then you should like Jacobe Lane because they are very similar football players. And Lane, to me, should go right in that same vicinity that we saw Higgins go last year. I think Higgins was a second round pick, late second round pick last year. Kobe Lane should be right in that same mix, I believe, this year's draft as well. Checking in at number 9 is a guy that grew on me throughout this process. You asked me who took the biggest strides in terms of growth in my mind, where I started in the process, and I try not to have a bias when I do this, but it's hard. I'm human. I watched Alabama play. I wasn't overly impressed with what I saw, but I didn't see the full entire picture. Talking about Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver out of Alabama. Jeremy Bernard, 6'1", 206. First of all, I think that's a really good frame for him. Then he wowed me at the combine by running a 4.48. I did not think he was going to run that fast. And then I turned on the tape, and then it was just good tape. There was nothing bad there. Everything was really good. He blocks. He catches everything that's thrown to him. You can hand it to him. He can make something happen after the catch. He's got enough juice to be able to snap off routes and win as a route runner. And he's just enough vertical speed to get on top of someone and make a play down the field, even though that's the thing that he really lacks. If you're looking for a nitpick of Jeremy Bernard, but that's not going to be his game at the next level. He's not going to be asked consistently to beat somebody vertically. And if given the opportunity, if he catches a defender flat-footed, he can run by them, but that's not going to be his calling card. He's going to be a jack of all trades. He's a guy you can line up in the backfield. He's a guy you can throw it to out of the backfield. He's a guy that you can send a jet sweep motion with and give it to him, or have him be a fake option and then throw it to him. He's a guy you can line up in the slot. He's a guy you can line up out wide. You can do everything with Jeremy Bernard on the field. He's one of those chess pieces that you move around. And the more I watched him, the more and more I understood what he is at the NFL level. And I gained a greater appreciation for what he can provide. He's another guy that is well-traveled, started out his career at Michigan State, then went to Washington, then ended up at Alabama. So, again, another guy that is well-traveled throughout his time in college. But make no mistake about it, I clearly see the vision for what Jeremy Bernard is at the NFL level. It hit me like that. When I watched him, the first thing that popped off the screen at me was, "Oh, this is Deebo Samuel, right? This is Deebo Samuel." And the measurables are similar. He's a little bit bigger than Deebo was coming out in terms of height. I think he's a better route runner and a better overall wide receiver than Deebo was coming out of South Carolina. Deebo was a better handler of the football, meaning you could just give it to Deebo and he turned into a battering ram. Good luck tackling him. And Deebo also offered you the ability to run back kicks. Jeremy Bernard has done in his career, but that's not something that you're probably looking for him to do. But Deebo was a guy you could hand it to early in his career, a guy you could throw it to, a guy that could run back kickoffs. And they're very similar. The build is very similar. They play with that physicality. I think Bernard is a better receiver, But when you look at his body of work and what he will provide at the next level, I think he's another Debo Samuel type of player, rough, rugged, get it in his hands. He does the dirty work, not afraid to get his hands dirty in the fray, will block. Jeremy Bernard is a guy that, like I said, just grew on me as this process wore on. He started out in the teens. He worked his way down. I watched more receivers. He kept working his way up the list. He settled in at 9, and I think this is a good spot for him. He's going to be a good receiver in this league. And again, you put him with the right offensive play caller, one that understands his skill set. Look out. Jeremy Bernard could be a big time problem at the NFL level. He's my number 9 wide receiver. Checking in at number 8 is a wide receiver that was a huge part of a national championship winner. Of course, talking about Indiana wide receiver Omar Cooper Jr., who was fantastic for the Indiana Hoosiers this season en route to a national championship. Six Basically 200 pounds, 199, ran a 4.42. I did not expect him to run a 4.42 40. That helps him a lot. But to me, that's not indicative of what he is. He's really, truly a slot wide receiver, a big slot that is tough, rugged, does the dirty work, catch the football underneath, does a lot of the underneath work. Um, he's a guy that I feel like does a great job of settling in zone, understands leverage, how to beat, certain coverages, how to snap off routes to put himself in the best position to be friendly to a quarterback. He's a tough guy. Obviously, we all saw the catch against Penn State that ultimately saved Indiana's season. That catch in the back of the end zone, that drive was the Omar Cooper drive, if you will. I mean, he was spectacular on that drive. When they had to have it, he provided it for them. And that was really a theme of their season. When they had to have big plays, Omar Cooper Jr. stepped up in some of the biggest points of their season. And I can't get over the fact that he just feels like a Los Angeles Ram. A lot of the things that they asked uh, Puka Nakua to do, or the things that they used to ask um, Robert Woods to do, you could see Omar Cooper Jr. doing, right? Like, he just strikes me as that type of wide receiver. He'd be a great fit in LA with the Rams. Um, my comp for him is Chris Godwin, another guy that just does all of the dirty work, right? Chris Godwin will never get the accolades that he deserves. He'll never be the most flashy, gaudy wide receiver. When you start talking about receivers that are reliable in this league, don't rattle off Chris Godwin's name, but you damn sure better bet that this is a guy that is one of those guys you can trust, with the game on the line, 3rd and 7, gotta have it. Press coverage. Omar Cooper Jr. is gonna win. He's gonna come down with the football, just like Chris Godwin often does for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Similar frame, similar speed, and a similar football player. I think Chris Godwin, excuse me, Omar Cooper Jr. is so much alike. I'm calling him Chris Godwin. Omar Cooper Jr. is a guy that I feel like day one comes in, makes the football team better immediately. Immediately. Um, he's my number 8 wide receiver. Um, another thing, to go back to Jacobe Lane, matter of fact, we'll talk about that when we go back to the list at the very end. Um, number 7, I think number 7 is my favorite wide receiver in this entire draft class. His tape was so fun to watch, and I know he's gonna be higher for me because I appreciate him more than I think most people. I have an appreciation for guys that play the way that he plays the game, and the guy that I comp him to, again, I'm a lot higher on that guy than most people are in the league because, again, I just appreciate the way he plays the game. My number 7 wide receiver is Clemson wide receiver Antonio Williams. This is a guy that I'm gonna be honest with you, didn't know a ton about. Clemson's fallen on hard times, haven't watched a ton of Clemson football over the last few years, but he didn't even start his career at Clemson anyhow. If I'm not mistaken, he started his career out in Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check on that. I don't wanna put out false information, but I'm pretty sure his career started out at Wisconsin, and then he made his way to Clemson. But let me double check on that really quickly. This is a guy that plays football extremely hard. Um, let's see. Might be mixing up my receivers. Nope, he was um, always at Clemson. So that's my bad. I'm thinking of somebody else that started their career at Wisconsin. This is a guy that, like I said, I think I am a fan of his more so than many in this draft that are evaluating these players. 5'11" and a half, so basically 6 feet, 187 pounds, ran a 4.41 40 at the combine, and it shows. You see it on tape. His quickness is lightning fast. I think he's one of the better route runners in this draft class. I'm watching him break dudes off. I'm watching him create massive separation. He knows where to sit down in zone coverage. He gets the ball in his hands. He's going to make something happen with it. He runs hard, he runs physically, but he also runs with the ability to make you miss. He can break out the do-it-yourself kit. So he can BYOB, be his own blocker. He blocks in the run game for his teammates. He catches everything. He can track the football really well. He, to me, is one of those guys that you don't you don't give him the respect that he deserves. He has to take it from you, right? Not the biggest guy in the world, and the 4.41 40. You don't always see it, even though I feel it when I watch it. I feel the speed, right? But on tape, you don't necessarily feel that speed. You know what I mean? So the speed element doesn't scare you. So it's not forcing corners to back off. So they feel emboldened, like, yeah, get up in this dude's face. He ain't that fast. He ain't gonna blow by me. And his ability to just run routes, snap it off, blah, 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 release off the line of scrimmage, head and shoulder fake, you know, snap off a route, come back to the football. His ability to catch the football in traffic, his ability to be strong with the ball in his hands. I'm a massive fan of Antonio Williams. You ask me the guy that I think has a chance to outplay where he's going to be drafted. My number one answer is Antonio Williams. He'll get drafted. My guess is he'll be a third or fourth round pick. He'll be a third or a fourth round pick. Some smart team would take him in the second round. I think he's worthy of a second round pick because he could easily turn into a Stephon Diggs. Like right now, that's not where he is. Right? That's not where he is. His ceiling is something of a number one wide receiver, I believe. Right? But he's going to be drafted in more likely than not. I think he's going to be a late third, fourth round pick, and someone's going to get a steal. Someone's going to get second round to late first round value out of Antonio Williams. I feel very confident about him as a football player. When you play the game the way that he does, and you do the things that he is capable of doing, the only real weakness for me with him is you don't really always feel his vertical speed, and he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he catches it well, he tracks it well, he can run routes, he can win against press, he can sit down in zone, he gets run after catch opportunities, create for himself. There isn't anything he can't do. You can play him in the slot, you can play him outside. He's probably more comfortable in the slot, but they moved him around at Clemson. You can hand it to him. My comp for him, think Parker Washington in Jacksonville, another one of my favorite players in the league right now. Parker Washington got it out the mud. Coming out of Penn State, nobody even thought about Parker Washington. He made his bones. He cut his teeth in this league as a punt returner. Jacksonville couldn't ignore him because he kept running back punts for touchdowns. Eventually, he worked his way into the lineup because he continued to make plays on special teams, and he took advantage of that opportunity. And Parker Washington is one of the best slot receivers in the entire National Football League right now as we speak. He plays with toughness. He can win. He can separate as a route runner with that quickness that he uses as a punt returner, which you see with Antonio Williams. Parker Washington is, if he can stay healthy, will turn into a massive problem in Jacksonville. And that is what I see for Antonio Williams right out of the gate. Now, Antonio Williams, I think, can take it up a notch and become a Stephon Diggs type. If he maximizes his talent in this league, I think he could become a Stephon Diggs type, right? But right now, he's Parker Washington, and I love that for him. I love that for him. You go ask Trevor Lawrence who his favorite receiver to throw the football to in Jacksonville is right now, and you see what his answer is. I guarantee you it's Parker Washington because he's a friendly target for a quarterback because he can separate and he catches everything. That is Antonio Williams. One of my favorite players in the draft right now. He's my number 7 wide receiver in this draft. Number 6 is a guy that I think is a bit of a lightning rod. I think he's a bit of an enigma in this draft. I think he can be a bit polarizing, but I saw enough to think that this guy has immense talent, and that is Texas A&M wide receiver Casey Concepcion. Now, this is a guy in Casey Concepcion, 6 feet, 196 pounds. I was dying to see what his 40 time would be because I feel like he's not going to run as fast as a lot of people think he would, but he's going to be fast enough. He never ran his 40, which is a bit alarming for me, which tells me that he's probably not as fast as I think he is, but it doesn't matter. I think he plays faster than the time speed, right? Whatever that would have been. That said, I can tell you this. Casey Concepcion has routed up your favorite cornerback in this draft, more likely than not. If you are a Mansour Delane fan, oh, he was routing him up that entire game. Go watch the LSU game, Texas A&M. Now, his quarterback play was awful, was um, KC Concepcion. So, like, you got to take it with a grain of salt. He didn't get the football. And a lot of times with Mansour Delane, what bailed him out is the quarterback didn't target the receivers he was guarding. And that some of that is off of reputation. Some of that was off of lack of time. There was pressure being applied to the quarterback. But KC Concepcion was routing up Mansour Delane, and he got open, and he was giving Delane trouble often in that game. And unfortunately, he didn't get it enough. But his ability to run routes, his quickness, he right now, to me, KC Concepcion right now is more of a 1-2 level wide receiver. If he truly unlocks the 3rd level, that's when he can become potentially elite. I don't know if he possesses the ability to do that or not. And the guy that I comp him to, the same question kind of um, is being asked of him, right? I think these are very similar players, to be honest with you. But it doesn't matter for that player that I'm going to comp him to. That guy has exploded basically being a 1st and 2nd level wide receiver because he's so dynamic in that role. And that's KC Concepcion. Just get it in his hands. He will make something happen. Just get it in his hands. He can run routes, he can separate, he can sit down in zone, he can catch the football, he can make something happen. The biggest knock on KC Concepcion right now, outside of can he work the 3rd level, is his hands. They can be very inconsistent. There are too many focus drops. There's too many double catches for me. That is a problem, but if he cleans that up, and he's capable, he can win and win big at the NFL level. And he can take and the guys that can take a 4-yard pass and turn it into a 24 or 34-yard gain, those are invaluable. Not everyone has one. And if you can get your hands on one, that guy can serve as a game changer because that guy doesn't have to touch it 7, 8, 9, although you want to get it to him that many times if he's dynamic. But that kind of player doesn't have to touch it 9 or 10 times in a game to be effective and to have an impact. Guy like that, you get it to him 4 or 5 times, one of those is going to turn into a 16 to 22-yard gain because he's going to make 2 guys miss and take a 6-yard catch and turn it into a 26-yard catch. And so he's got that kind of ability. I liken him to Zay Flowers. I see so much of Zay Flowers. And you think about Zay Flowers coming out of BC. Zay Flowers, dynamic route runner, quick and fast. Zay Flowers played bigger than his frame. So this KC Concepcion. Zay Flowers, issues with concentration drop, still has that issue at the NFL level, something he hasn't completely ironed out. And can Zay Flowers, with all his quickness and speed, can he work the third level consistently? We still haven't really seen that from him. These are all things we talk about with KC Concepcion. But what Zay Flowers has done is he's mastered the first and second level catches and exploiting them and maximizing them to the point now where he's a 1,000-yard receiver. He's big time for the Baltimore Ravens, and I can see KC Concepcion being that. He is my number 6 wide receiver in this draft. So let's quickly recap 10 through 6. We start at number 10, Jacobe Lane, wide receiver out of USC, 6'4", 200 pounds. Something else I wanted to add with him, massive red zone target. That is another reason why he is this high on my list. 12 touchdowns in 2024 for Jacobe Lane. 12 touchdowns in 2024. This is a guy that in the red zone becomes a massive target for the quarterback because of his ability to climb the ladder, because of his ability to use his speed and quickness to win on slants and, back line digs, things of that nature, fades. He is a guy you can feature in the red zone, and he will come through for you in big time situations. I liken him to Jaden Higgins, who we saw do some really good things in his rookie season for the Houston Texans. Number 9, Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver out of Alabama, a guy that grew on me throughout this process, slowly climbed his way into my top 10 of wide receivers. A guy that is jack of all trades, can do so many things. I liken him to Deebo Samuel at the NFL level, a better wide receiver version of Deebo Samuel. Number 8, Omar Cooper Jr., national championship winning wide receiver out of Indiana, a guy that I just think is a savant in the slot, is a tough guy, can run routes, knows where to be, when to be there, and when he's there, he's going to make the play for you. Made tons of plays for the Indiana Hoosiers in route to them winning the Natty. And Chris Godwin is what I liken him to. Godwin doesn't get the credit that I believe he deserves, what he has provided for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Cooper's another one of those unheralded, unsung heroes. And I think if he goes to the right team, a la the Rams, he will be a guy that will be a force in this league. Number 7 is my favorite wide receiver in this draft, one of my favorite players in this draft, Antonio Williams, wide receiver out of Clemson. This is a guy that I think can do everything. The only thing I question is, can he consistently win at the third level? But when he gets on top of receivers and stacks them, he tracks the football, and you go watch him against Georgia. Nobody played well in 2024. That Clemson game, that first week of the season, when they got clobbered by the Georgia Bulldogs, but he did, and he made some extraordinary catches. He was one of the few Clemson players that didn't look overwhelmed by Georgia in that game. Routed those boys up. Every game I watched, he routed up the defenders. He sat down in zone. He maximized every single catch, yards after catch, plays with a level of toughness that I just absolutely admire and love. Parker Washington is my comp for him, another guy that I just love in this league that I think is really underrated and just plays the game with a level of toughness and a level of consistency that quarterbacks just absolutely love. Again, I think Antonio Williams has a chance to grow into a number 1 wide receiver, but I think he could easily come in and be a number 2 right away. I really believe he's got the talent to do that. I'm higher on him, I think, than most in this draft. Number 6, KC Concepcion, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. He's another guy that I think has immense talent, can win on those first 2 levels. I liken him to Zay Flowers. Again, Zay Flowers had issues with drops coming out of college. Same thing with KC Concepcion, but the route running ability, the quickness in and out of breaks, the ability to run after catch, the ability to make yourself an available, inviting target for the quarterback, and the ability to run with the football and make something happen after the catch is where KC Concepcion shines. I think he is a guy that is also showcased in toughness as well. Like him as my number 6 wide receiver. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of my 2026 draft rankings, wide receiver, volume 2. Looking forward to chopping it up with you next time when we count down my top 5 wide receivers in the upcoming 2026 NFL draft. Until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. Have a good one.